Hey everyone, Sky here to discuss Joker, starring Joaquin Phoenix, Robert De Niro, Zazie Beetz, Frances Conroy, and Brett Cullen, and directed by Todd Phillips. Yes, the Hangover director Todd Phillips. Now, before I get into this movie, I will admit one thing. I was really scared that it might be bad, but I hope it was amazing. But will I think it's amazing? Let's get into this movie and find out, shall we? It's 1981 in Gotham City, and Arthur Fleck, played by Joaquin Phoenix, who I primarily know from these two movies. And I've reviewed him a couple of times before in these two movies. But he works as a clown for hire for a company called Ha-Ha's. Kind of ironic, I think. And he should get the Oscar for this performance because he was really good in this role, but not as good as Heath Ledger, who won the Oscar. But he's second best Joaquin Phoenix, in my opinion. He is tasked with advertising a store by dancing and waving a sign around, and does get snatched by a group of punk-ass teenagers, forcing Arthur to chase them into an alley. They smash the sign against his face and proceed to mercilessly kick him while he's down, and that's when he becomes this insane character everyone knows and loves, including this version. This movie is well shot, with Gotham looking like New York City, and the cinematography is amazing to look at. Gotham is struggling in this era with crime, unemployment, and poverty. Arthur visits a social worker for his medication, as well as his ongoing mental health issues, and Phoenix plays it very fucking realistic. At one point on the bus ride home, a small child looks at Arthur as he makes silly faces that amuse the boy, but his mother tells Arthur to leave him alone. Arthur begins to laugh hysterically, and when the mother questions him, he hands her a card that explains that he has a condition that causes him to laugh the way he does. And I honestly didn't know that somebody could have a condition like that. But my God, again, give Phoenix the Oscar, pretty please, because, again, he's tremendous, like Heath Ledger. Arthur returns home, where he lives with his ailing mother, Penny, played by Frances Conroy, who I'll talk about next week in... They sit and watch a talk show with host Murray Franklin, played by Robert De Niro, who I just can't get away from the Scorsese days, and we'll talk about him again in November in this movie. Arthur imagines himself being on the show and getting Murray's attention, and De Niro is great in this movie too, might I add. In his fantasy, Arthur charms the audience and Murray by telling them that he takes care of his mother, and that was a great looking scene. This whole movie looks great. Penny used to work for Thomas Wayne, played by Brett Cullen, and I reviewed him before with these two movies. And has written to him to try and better their living situation, in which good luck with the name of Wayne. And I like the character Brett Cullen puts together of Thomas Wayne, who is a selfish bastard, and Brett Cullen plays it very well. At Ha-Ha's, Arthur is given a gun for protection by his coworker Randall, after he hears about the mugging incident, which feels pretty fucking dangerous to give it to a psycho. Arthur is infatuated with his neighbor, single mother Sophie Dumond, played by Zazie Beetz from this movie. And I like her here, but I like her better in Deadpool 2, where she's a badass, than here as a single mother. She speaks to him politely, but he is awkward and weird around her. At one point, he spends his day following her, which is pretty fucking creepy. Later, she comes by his apartment and asks if he was following her, and he admits he was. but she doesn't seem put off by it, which is odd, but it's nice, and he invites her to a stand-up comedy show that he is performing at, which was a fantastic but awkward of a scene, in my opinion. Arthur goes to the comedy club. For his performance, he starts off laughing uncontrollably before going off into his routine, which isn't very funny, by the way, poor guy. Sophie appears to be in the audience, aka the only person who is laughing at Arthur's jokes, and I was afraid something would happen to him, like people booing him off the stage, which does happen later on, but I'll get there. That's how much I cared for this character. Arthur later goes to a children's hospital to entertain them as a clown. He brought his gun with him, and which falls out on the floor, which very fucking dangerous, by the way. Arthur's boss later chews him out for this, and I would too, if as well as for losing the sign from the store where he got mugged. To top things off, Randall claims that Arthur got the gun himself, which very uncool. Arthur gets fired, and he leaves Ha-Ha's after calling Randall out on giving him the gun. Arthur's week only gets worse when he is told by his social worker that the city is cutting off funding and shutting down that facility, meaning Arthur has nowhere else to get his meds. And this is getting kind of heavy where the story goes, but I'm still liking this quite a bit. On the subway train ride home from Ha-Ha's in full clown get up, Arthur spots the three young Wall Street types harassing a woman. Arthur starts laughing and draws the attention of the men, while the woman wisely flees from that car. The men approach Arthur and mock him and his laughter before they start to beat him up. And then Arthur pulls out his gun and shoots two of them dead before following the last guy out of the train and killing him on the stairs. And I thought, damn, I'll react inappropriately at the end, but I'll get there. In shock over what he just did, and I was amazingly shocked too when they showed me that too. Arthur retreats into a bathroom, which was very well shot as he begins to dance with himself. The news of the three murders spreads, with some seeing it as an attack on the wealthy, while others support the act. Thomas Wayne speaks out and condemns it. Arthur later finds out of one of Penny's letters to Thomas, which indicates that Arthur is Thomas's son, which shocked the hell out of me. Arthur goes to Wayne Manor, and where he meets young Bruce Wayne, by the way. He was a young kid, I'll say. And I knew it was coming thanks to IMDb and YouTube. He sticks his hands through the gate to make Bruce smile, but the butler Alfred comes to intervene and tell Arthur to get lost, and Arthur mentions his mother and her involvement with Thomas. But Alfred says he remembers Penny and that she was lying to him, which seems fucked up. But the more fucked up thing is, Arthur tries to attack Alfred but ends up running away. Two police detectives, Burke and Garrity, go to Arthur's apartment, to question him on the subway murders due to the word that the suspect was wearing a clown makeup, and they knew Arthur lost his job earlier than that day. Arthur denies any involvement and gets the detectives to leave not long after Penny falls ill, is hospitalized, which very sad for Arthur. Sophie sits by Arthur as he tends to his mother, and I felt sorry for him. That's great writing. In the hospital, Arthur sees that Murray's show is playing a clip from his stand-up routine, but he is hurt to see that Murray is only played it to mock Arthur, which felt very heavy. Arthur finds Thomas at a public event and tries to confront him with the potential of him being his father. Arthur mentions Penny, whom Thomas also remembers, and here comes something that really makes me dislike Thomas Wayne. He says she was delusional, and that's and that there's no way Arthur could be his son. Arthur starts laughing in Thomas's face before Thomas punches Arthur's, and the man is thrown out of the building. And I really started to hate Thomas Wayne, but he was likable in Batman Begins. But here, he's an asshole. Arthur later receives a phone call from a rep for Murray's show, and he is invited to appear as a guest, which Arthur accepts. And here comes the moment this movie gets very fucking heavy, half to death. Seeking hard proof, Arthur goes to Arkham Asylum and speaks to a clerk named Carl, who has a file on Penny. When Carl says he can't give it the info he wants, Arthur snatches the file and runs away. And to read it, the reality is that Penny adopted Arthur after he was found abandoned, and she abused him. I was very fucking shocked. At one part of the file mentions Arthur having a head injury, which is most likely what caused his laughing condition, and that also shocked the hell out of me. Arthur returns to the hospital and tells Penny that his life was a tragedy, but he sees it's a fucking comedy. With that, he smothers Penny to death, and it was really good, but really heavy. Arthur goes back home and breaks into Sophie's apartment. She sees him, and is terrified, asking him to leave for the sake of her daughter. Through this, it is revealed that every moment featuring Sophie was just in Arthur's head, and my jaw hit the floor really hard from the shocker of that scene. Arthur starts to get ready for his appearance on Murray's show. He is visited in this apartment by Randall and another former co-worker named Gary. I like Gary in this movie as he's made fun of for how little he is. They offer condolences after they hear about Penny's death, but then they mention Burke and Garrity going to their apartment to question them and about the subway murders. Arthur then brutally stabs Randall to death, which made me go, ugh, fuck me. But he lets a frightened Gary go home since he was the only one at Ha-Ha's that was nice to him. Arthur then dyes his hair green, puts on a full clown makeup, and dons a burgundy suit, which was such an awesome first appearance of Arthur as the Joker. Burke and Garrity find Arthur dancing in the street and move in to arrest him. After dancing was a haunting moment as he runs in. They chase him into the subway train where dozens of other Gotham citizens are dressed like clowns. After being inspired by the murders as the detectives pursue Arthur, one clown gets in the way and Burke accidentally shoots him dead. The clowns pull the detectives out of the subway and start beating them, allowing Arthur to get away. And that chase sequence is shot tremendously in my mind. At the TV station, Arthur meets Murray and his agent Jean. Before he goes on Arthur asks Murray to introduce him as the Joker. Since Murray referred to him as such when playing his clip, Arthur goes out as the show begins. He awkwardly tells Murray a joke before admitting to the subway murders, which is not something to joke about in general, I must say. Murray and the audience slowly realize Arthur is serious, which did take them a while. Arthur argues that the audience only cares for the victims because Thomas Wayne spoke for them, but anyone else like Arthur would be ignored and walked over. Murray and the audience grow angrier with Arthur and boo Arthur, but so does he, and I can see why. Murray scolds Arthur, which escalates into Arthur snapping and blowing Murray's brains out in front of everyone, and I thought, shit! He fucked with De Niro, and nobody should ever fuck with De Niro. But Joaquin Phoenix did, and the audience runs away in terror, and the news of the murders hits immediately hits the airwaves, and I was focused on a commercial of a pink rabbit promoting a battery. Gotham is now overrun by rioting citizens as clowns, after hearing about what Arthur did, the Waynes leave a movie theater to find the chaos in the streets. Thomas takes Martha and Bruce to an alley, but one clown follows them and tells Thomas he's getting what he deserves, which admittedly he does. With that being said, he shoots Thomas and Martha dead in front of Bruce. Meanwhile, Arthur has been arrested and is being taken by police, but clowns in an ambulance run into the car and free Arthur, and the rioters then cheer Arthur on as he stands on a car and embraces their admiration. Now that he has gotten the recognition he has long desired, and that was very powerful. Sometime later, Arthur is locked up in Arkham. He meets a new social worker, and he says he wants to tell her a joke, but she wouldn't get it. A few minutes later, Arthur then steps out of the room, leaving the trail of bloody footprints behind before he is chased around by orderlies. A Frank Sinatra song plays in the background. And what a great ending. I'm just going to be honest there. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 9.3 out of 10. As this movie is very heavy and it's very powerful. And Joaquin Phoenix gives a great performance. And the cinematography is beyond fantastic. And the other actors do very well with their performances. This is a masterpiece. But so far, Heath Ledger is the best Joker I've seen. Joaquin Phoenix is second best. Third best is Jack Nicholson. Fourth best is Cesar Romero. And dead last is Jared Leto as far as the movies goes. I didn't bring up Mark Hamill because I don't remember him too much as the Joker in that Batman animated series. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me for the Batman series. And next up for DC, Batman's anti-hero, enemy, something? Help me out here. Catwoman. That's going to be played by Halle Berry. I'll talk to you then, and until next time...